Hello, everybody, and welcome here to the Wine with Jimmy channel. Thank you so much for clicking by. And as many of you know, this channel is all about wine education. If you are an enthusiastic amateur or a student, you will find all the information you need here for your better enjoyment of wine. Welcome to my mini series on Virginia. Very wonderful state on the mid-Atlantic region of the United States of America. So I have already tackled series 1. Perhaps you have seen it or not. That is on the history of Virginia, a 3-part series totaling 60 minutes. This series is now looking at viticulture within Virginia. So going through the climate, geology, the challenges faced in the state, and then grape varieties, vintages, and so on. This first video is available as free content, but parts 2 to 5 are only available to those of you who subscribe to this mini-series. Information from that can be found below this video in the description, or you can get in touch via the winewithjimmy.com website or by emailing info@winewithjimmy.com. If you have a question or a comment, it would be great to hear from you. Please pop your questions and comments in the comments section below this video. Okay, let's begin looking at the location of the state of Virginia. As mentioned, it's located in the mid-Atlantic region of the United States, covering some 102,000 square kilometers. You'll see it is below Washington, D.C., West Virginia, next to Kentucky, Tennessee, and north of North Carolina, with the Atlantic Ocean and the Chesapeake Bay on its eastern side. And that diverse geography is fantastic. So stretching from the coast, like the Chesapeake Bay, for example, and the eastern shore, all the way inland to the Appalachian Mountains on the western side of Virginia. Here is the view, a satellite image of the Chesapeake Bay, which I thought I'd throw in to give you an idea of its geography on that eastern side. And then going to that western side, of course, we have the Blue Ridge Mountains and also the Allegheny Mountains. Now, Virginia has 8 mountain ranges with 5 peaks towering more than 1,500 meters. That's about 5,000 feet. And it's home to 1/4 of the Appalachian Trail amongst the 2,050-mile-long Appalachian Mountains. The 2 major chains are what are described on your screen. So the Blue Ridge Mountains and the Allegheny Mountains. These are both located on the western side of the state, sort of combined within West Virginia state. The Shenandoah National Park is located within the Blue Ridge Mountains, and the park is very long and narrow with the Shenandoah River and its broad valley to the west and the rolling hills of the Virginia Piedmont to the east. The drive through there, the Skyline Drive, is the main park road, which is quite spectacular to look at as well. Let's go through the climate. So Virginia's generally hospitable macro climate allows the state to grow a range of varieties that might be unsuited to colder winter temperatures or hotter growing season temperatures. The Virginia climate is classified as humid subtropical and really characterized by evenly distributed precipitation throughout the year, with warm, humid summers and moderately cold winters. Now, I've experienced the warm summers here. Actually, my mini moon was in Virginia, as the state of Virginia is for lovers, Virginia for lovers. And I spent 4 or 5 days here, really hot, very humid, and one day, huge, heavy rainfall as well. But there is substantial regional variation in climate due to the state's diverse geographic elements. So temperatures and precipitation vary according to elevation and proximity to the Atlantic Ocean and the Chesapeake Bay. Temperatures are cooler to the north and west, and precipitation, of course, decreases as you head away from the Atlantic as you head west. There's a picture there of Veritas vineyards in Afton. A little bit on climate change. So since the beginning of the 20th century, Virginia has experienced a 0.83 Celsius rise in the average annual temperature. That's about 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Over the same time, it has also shown a small upward trend in precipitation. It's quite similar to the UK, where we're getting warmer, but we're getting wetter. Now, you will find that the annual precipitation and the number and intensity of extreme rainfall events, which are greater than 50 millimeters per day, are both projected to increase. But despite these increases, there's still droughts in the state of Virginia. And when these regional or even sort of statewide droughts occur, they are projected to be more intense as the higher temperatures will drive higher evaporation and evapotranspiration rates during the dry spells. Stinson Vineyards in that picture in Charlottesville. So we're now going to look at some wonderful maps to give you the climatic data in play. So you'll see it's separated into sort of areas. So these are not AVAs, but they are parts of Virginia, which are classically geographically divided. Okay, let's look at some climatic data instead of the lovely pictures to give you an idea of what the different climate and weather across the geographical subdivisions of Virginia looks like. So there's a map. I've given you the states that surround these areas. I've identified Washington, D.C. and Richmond on there and the Chesapeake Bay. And we've split the color zones. They're the geographical zones that you will see. Now, the lower humidity and cooler summer temperatures create less disease pressure on the fruit and delayed ripening. So you will find this favors varieties like Chambourcin, Vidal Blanc, and Riesling. The longer growing season makes for more balanced and fresh wines. So you'll see here, we've given you the bluish area, which is the western area, the southwestern mountain, which has fairly high rainfall. It's about 1,041 millimeters. Growing season length is fairly short, 155 days, and a fairly low growing season temperature at 16.7. Then you have the central mountain area, protected by the Blue Ridge and the Allegheny Mountains. The valley stays drier than most regions and is often safe from severe late season weather and benefits from cooler temperatures and lower humidity. The cooler temperatures can be a double-edged sword, however. Winters could lead to severe winter injury and a loss of vine, so what we would call a winter frost. And when spring comes around, the late frosts nearing bud break can be very impactful. Slightly lower rainfall in the central mountains, so 991 millimeters, a little bit warmer, however, by about a degree Celsius, and growing season length is just a little bit greater. The northern area, so the vineyard crews here closely monitor the vines to protect against late frosts. Rainfall back up here, nearly 1,100 millimeters, but longer growing season length and warm again in terms of its temperature. Then you come to the tidewater area. This is, of course, an area very much impacted by the ocean. So the marine effect here impacts weather, the soil, and ultimately the wine here. So being surrounded by the Chesapeake Bay and the rivers that flow into it, these regions are resistant to cold winters that can lead to vineyard loss and spring frosts. Though due to a proximity to the coast, many eastern wineries can be susceptible to the effects of hurricanes and tropical weather patterns. You'll see the rainfall is the highest here, so close to 1,200 millimeters, but a growing season length of nearly 200 days and a very warm growing season temperature of 20 degrees C, the highest so far. Next, we are talking about the Piedmont areas, which are actually split into the east and west, but I'm doing them together because they are very similar, as you can see. This is one of the warmest parts of the state. Southern Virginia, around here, has a perfect climate for ripening to achieve balance. It's really where good ripening comes into play and balance. The season here, though, the regional area is susceptible to late seasonal rains and hurricanes. The warmth helps speed up the harvest to avoid harsh weathers. One of the biggest challenges for vineyards across the Commonwealth, including the South, is disease, and diseases like Pierce's disease. It's one such disease that can damage the vines and stunt grape growth. There are vineyard managers adapting here to more disease-resistant varietals and responsibly spraying insecticides where needed. So rainfall similar to that of tidewater, growing season length a little bit less and the temperature a bit less as well. So just to recap the rainfall, we really have 4 areas of unique precipitation rates. Rather than a winter-dominated rainfall pattern, as occurs in most wine-growing regions worldwide, Virginia's rainfalls are generally evenly distributed throughout the year, making it fairly marine and maritime in its rainfall patterns. Now, the mountainous zones, so as we mentioned, like the Central Mountain area, the average monthly rainfall is some of the lowest. So this is where you border up to Western Virginia with around 75 millimeters plus average monthly rainfall. In that sort of Piedmont area, or at least part of it's around 100 millimeters. The parts of the tidewater in Piedmont at 125, and then real sort of southeasterly parts here. So where it borders North Carolina and on the ocean is where it's some of the greatest average monthly rainfall, as you can see. So let's take a look at Virginia's geology. It's difficult to make generalizations about Virginia's topography. The state is 300 miles east to west, and altitudes range from sea level at Chesapeake Bay to Mount Rogers, which is 1,750 meters. That's about 5,750 feet. Now, the subdivisions here looking at geology are not the same as the climatic subdivisions. So first of all, you see I've highlighted the Appalachian Plateau and the Valley and Ridge. That's blue and red on your map. So this is what we would call west of the Blue Ridge Mountains. This is where we have sandstone and limestone being most prevalent in this area. Okay, so that's your first geological area. Then you have the Blue Ridge. It's that kind of pinkish line. Here we have metamorphic rock and ancient volcanic soils dominating this central Blue Ridge. But it also goes into the Piedmont area as well, where you get sandstone and shale and a little bit of that nice schist and greenstone as well. So then we go to the Piedmont area, which is known for its diversity of ray clay soils, which are very much differentiated by their structure, composition, and depth. A special type of loam, which is sand, silt, and clay, is found here called dike loam. And that covers a deep bed of dense iron-rich clay. Now, these soils encourage downward root growth and retain enough water to avoid the need for irrigation in all but the driest of years. This water retention also maintains cool temperatures in the summer heat, helping to moderate the vineyard's mesoclimate and slow ripening in particularly hot years. And we finally head to the sort of tidewater or coastal plain area, where we find young clay and sand in these lower altitude zones. found on the sort of coastal zones. So there you are. Okay, well, that brings me to a conclusion for this first part on Series 2, looking at the location, climate, and geology. If you want to follow on and really listen to the very important part on the environmental challenges for grape growers, then this part, along with everything that follows, is only available to those of you who subscribe to my Virginian mini-series. Information for that can be found below in the text, the description of this video. Alternatively, you can click on winewithjimmy.com or click on the link below to purchase the mini-series. Any comments or questions, please do get in touch. And until next time, I've been Jimmy Smith. Thank you very much.